In the heart of the Nine Realms, nestled among the branches of the great world tree Yggdrasil, lay the golden kingdom of Asgard, home of the Gear gods. Bathed in an eternal, ethereal light, its spires of gold and silver pierced the heavens, a testament to the gods' power and glory. Among these divine beings, one shone brighter than all others, his very presence a beacon of joy and warmth. This was Baldr, the son of Odin and Frigg, the god of light, purity, and beauty. He was so fair of face and so radiant of spirit that a brilliant light seemed to emanate from his very being, casting long, gentle shadows and making the world around him bloom with life. All who lived in Asgard, from the mightiest gods to the humblest servants, adored him. His laughter was like the chiming of silver bells, his kindness as boundless as the sky. Animals would flock to him, nuzzling against his hand, and even the rocks and trees seemed to bend in his direction, basking in his benevolent glow. But a shadow began to creep into this idyllic existence. Baldr was plagued by terrible nightmares, visions of darkness and his own demise that left him trembling and filled with a profound sense of dread. The light in Asgard seemed to dim with his sorrow, the gods' laughter silenced by their concern. His mother, the Queen Frigg, could not bear to see her beloved son suffer. Determined to protect him, she embarked on an epic journey across the Nine Realms. She spoke to fire and water, to iron and all other metals, to stones, earth, and trees. She pleaded with sicknesses and poisons, with every beast that walked, flew, or crawled. From each and every one of them, she exacted a sacred, unbreakable oath that they would never harm her son. Baldr, the world itself, conspired to keep him safe, wrapping him in a blanket of invincibility. And so the joy returned to Asgard, brighter than ever before. The gods, relieved and endlessly amused by Baldr's newfound invulnerability, devised a game to celebrate. They would gather in the great hall of Gladsheim, or on the green fields of Ida, and they would test the oaths. Thor would hurl his mighty hammer, Mjolnir, only to see it veer away at the last second. Warriors would launch spears and shoot arrows, all of which would bounce harmlessly off Baldr's skin or turn to dust before they reached him. They threw stones, swung swords, and even tried to set him ablaze, but nothing could so much as scratch him. Baldr stood in the center of it all, his radiant smile unwavering, laughing along with his kin. The hall echoed with cheers and merriment as the gods marveled at the queen's success. It was a spectacle of divine power and familial love, a testament to Asgard's golden age. But not all eyes watched with joy. Lurking in the shadowed corners of the hall, away from the revelry, stood Loki, the god of mischief. His face, usually a mask of clever amusement, was twisted into a sneer of jealousy and resentment. He watched the gods fawning over the perfect Baldr, and a bitter, venomous thought took root in his heart. While the others celebrated, Loki, disguising himself as an old woman, he sought out Queen Frigg in her hall. Fensaler, with fawning words and clever questions, he praised her for her incredible feat. Has everything in creation truly sworn an oath to spare your son? The disguised Loki asked, his voice creaky and old. Frigg, proud and unsuspecting, admitted to a single, tiny oversight. East of Valhalla, she confessed, grows a small shrub called mistletoe. It seemed too young and harmless to demand an oath from. That was all Loki needed to hear. A sly, triumphant smile spread across his face as he shed his disguise in the shadows. His mind, a labyrinth of cunning and malice, now had the key it sought. He journeyed swiftly to the place Frigg had described and found the unassuming plant, a cluster of pale berries and green leaves clinging to an oak tree. It looked so insignificant, so trivial, yet in Loki's hands, it would become the instrument of Asgard's greatest tragedy. He plucked a branch and, with meticulous care, began to whittle it down. His fingers moved with a sinister grace, sharpening the wood into a deadly point, crafting not just an arrow, but the very embodiment of his envy. As he worked, he whispered venomous words into the wood, imbuing it with all his spite and cunning. The small dart seemed to pulse with a dark energy, a stark contrast to the golden light of Baldr. Back in the great hall, the gods' game continued, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Standing apart from the boisterous crowd was Höðr, Baldr's twin brother. Unlike the radiant god of light, Höðr was shrouded in perpetual darkness, for he had been born blind. He could hear the joy and merriment of his kin, but could not see the spectacle or participate in the games. He stood alone, his posture one of quiet isolation, a stark figure of shadow amidst the brilliance. It was this lonely figure that Loki approached, his steps silent, his presence like a cold draft. "Why do you not honor your brother like the others?" Loki asked, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Is it because you have no weapon? Or because you cannot see where to aim?" Höðr's face fell. "It is both," he replied sadly. "I have nothing to throw, and even if I did, I could not see my brother to join in the sport. Let me help you pay him the honor he is due," Loki whispered, his voice a serpent's hiss in Höðr's ear. "I will guide your hand." Deception dripped from every word. He placed the sharpened mistletoe dart into Höðr's unsuspecting grip. The blind god felt the small, smooth piece of wood. Unaware of its true nature, Loki then gently took his arm, positioning him, aiming his hand directly at the glowing heart of Baldr, who was still laughing in the center of the hall. "Now," Loki urged, "throw with all your might." Trusting his fellow god, Höðr put his strength into the throw. The scene shifted into horrifying slow motion. The small, seemingly insignificant dart of mistletoe cut through the air, a silent, dark sliver against the golden light. While hammers and swords had failed, this one tiny object, unbound by any oath, flew true. The dart struck Baldr square in the chest. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. The laughter died in the gods' throats. Then, the impossible happened. A single drop of blood, crimson and stark, bloomed on Baldr's white tunic. The radiant aura that surrounded him flickered violently, like a candle caught in a sudden, brutal wind. He staggered back, his face a mask of shock and pain. The golden light that was his very essence began to dim, retreating from the world as life retreated from his body. With a soft gasp, he collapsed to the ground. The light of Asgard went out with him. The world plunged into an unnatural twilight, the vibrant colors of the hall turning to muted, sorrowful grays. The air grew heavy and cold, thick with a despair so profound it was almost a physical weight, a collective cry of anguish, a sound of pure, unadulterated horror tore through the silence. The gods rushed forward, their faces etched with disbelief and grief. Frigg's scream was the most terrible of all, a mother's wail that seemed to shake the foundations of the cosmos. Odin knelt beside his son, his single eye, which had seen so much, now filled with a sorrow deeper than any ocean. The joyous halls of Asgard, which had just moments before rung with laughter, now fell into a desolate, oppressive despair. The air grew somber and heavy, charged with the chilling realization of what had just transpired. This was not merely the death of a beloved god, this was a prophecy fulfilled, an omen of the end. As the gods wept over the fallen Prince of Light, the narration of the Norns, the weavers of fate, seemed to rise on the wind, a chilling whisper echoing through the now gloomy realm. This was the first sign. This was the first sorrow. This was the first step towards Ragnarök, twilight of the gods. Even in death, a faint, tragic glow pulsed from him, a final, fading ember of the brilliant light he once was. In the periphery, a shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness of the hall. It was Loki. A sinister, triumphant smile played on his lips as he watched the gods despair, his dark work complete. Without a word, he melted back into the shadows, disappearing like a phantom, leaving behind only ruin and a broken kingdom. Outside, the eternal golden sky of Asgard began to curdle. Great, bruised purple storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed, blotting out the remaining light. A low, ominous rumble of thunder rolled across the heavens, a promise of the great and terrible winter to come, a harbinger of the final battle that would bring doom to them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so you won't miss the next story.